All right, good morning. It looks like we've just started. I would like to ask you if you can hear me and see me, but I don't have this opportunity here, but I assume everything is fine. So let's start. Welcome everybody on this Developer 2023 Autumn Edition. I'm very happy to see you guys. Actually, I don't see you, but I assume there are a lot of people on this talk. So I'm happy to have you here. And today, without any further ado, let's jump into the topic of DevOps transformation. And I would like to tell you something about how it is perceived from C-level point of view. What are the biases? What are the goals of CEO regarding the DevOps transformation? So at the beginning, let's focus on this DevOps word. What does it mean? I would love to ask you this question. But right now, if we don't have this two ways communication, I will just jump into my reflection. So DevOps, some people say it is a mindset, right? This is not so concrete word. So some people say that this is a tool chain. And what's the true? That's the question. And the true for me, and I think that for the industry, is the both definition. That's the mindset and that's the tool chain. And I will tell you why is that. First things first, as I'm an engineer, I would like to focus a little bit on the technology point of view. So let's assume very simplified process of development, the product. We have some development, we produce jar file, and we pass this jar file to the other team to deploy it to production or to do something with this jar file, or we deploy ourselves. So that's very, very high level view on the development from the technical point of view, right? But actually, when we think about all the things behind the scene, there are a lot of different aspects of it. And on the development side, there is definitely the architecture of the software, how we will design our software, rather microservices-oriented architecture or monolith-oriented architecture. Then we need to choose our programming language. Will we develop in Java or in C++, C#, or the other languages on the market? Then if we have the architecture and the language, then we need to focus on our version control. So how we will work together, because version controlling is about collaborating together, right? If I would be working alone, I could potentially manage my source code on my own, right? With a very simple tool. But if a lot of people are contributing to the one project and one product, we need to have version controls tools like Git, for example, right? And once we have this version control, we store our code. We have the repository of the code. Then we can build the jar file and deploy it somewhere to environment or to the cloud or whatever we use. And in the end, we have this logging mechanism, which tells us if the deployment went well, if the product is working well on our environment. So that's the development part of things. On the other hand, we have operations part of things. So again, we have a logging mechanism. Operations guys use the logs mechanism if some things go wrong. They also monitor the application, obviously not manually, but with many tools available on the market, Kibana, Grafana, and other stuff. They do the patching of the system, so they maintain software. And in the old world, there were two groups of the people: development people, engineers, and operations guys. And in the middle, we have gray area, and we're not sure who should own that in our companies, right? Because we need to deploy this package, this jar file, to various different environments, to the staging environment, to the UAT, users acceptance testing environment, pre-prod, prod, hidden prod, hidden pre-prod. I've heard such cases like this as well. So this is the area that needs to be done, and sometimes it's done by development, sometimes it's done by operations, and we are not sure who should do that. Obviously, our nowadays technology provides some tools which help us with those processes. We have the infrastructure as a code, which can help us maintaining and setting up the infrastructure and the servers. We can use containers like Docker, for example. We have tools for orchestration, for configuration management, CI/CD pipelines, logging and monitoring tools that I mentioned already. So it could be fairly easy, automated, right? And that's actually the DevOps common goal, to automate that as much as possible and to make development and operations guys work easy, life easy, and collaborating together. So that's how I see DevOps in our industry, and that's how this can work together. Obviously, as I mentioned, there are some tools available for us to help us, and we use that. I guess you are familiar with Git, with Nagios, with Jenkins, and with other stuff, with Puppet, Chef, Docker, Terraform, a lot of different tools that we may use on a daily basis to close this infinite loop of releasing, of building, coding, and releasing, testing, operating. So the whole process ideally should be automated, run by the same group of people. So we know about DevOps, right? A little bit. And now we can learn something about transformation. As you can see from the slide and from this word, transformation means that we need to transform our environment, our organization, our teams to be more DevOps. So DevOps transformation is basically changing the ways of working, changing the ways of thinking about ourselves, development operations, and changing the processes and tools. So again, from the helicopter view, simplifying the situation, we have state A and state B. And moving from state A to state B is a transformation. So we have our development processes in state A. For example, we don't use the CI/CD pipelines, and we would like to start using it. So moving to the stage number B. The thing is that this is not so easy transformation. Why is that? It's basically because of our ability to react to the change, or our weaknesses when reacting to the change as a humans. So on the left-hand side, you see, this is very, very brief example of the silos-oriented organization. You have a green box and a red box. Green box is development, red box is operations. And for those of you who work in such environment, you can feel, I guess, that there's a little bit tension between developers and operations folks. There's a little bit of wall when we work in the silos. And state B of our DevOps transformation would be to work closely together, to have this third point on the top, which is third square on the top, which is this DevOps mindset, and working together alongside, cross-changing the tasks, the knowledge between development and operations. And there is a step in the middle when we try to remove the barrier, but this barrier is not possible to remove it just like this. It takes time. We need to take some actions to remove that, and that's why we call it transformation, because it lasts for some time. There are 3 steps, as you can see. Kurt Lewin, the guy who invented this model, called those 3 steps unfreeze, change, and freeze. What does it mean? When we have the left-hand side ways of working, we need to unfreeze that. So we need to tell to the people and tell to our C-level executives, hey, we need to change that. Let's question status quo. Let's focus on what can be changed, what can be improved. And that's a very critical moment, because people will react on this question by resistance. They will say, oh, maybe not. Why do we need to change anything? It's working right now. And even developers, guys, can react that way, some of them, or the management. But if you convince them to start thinking about new ways of working, then there is this second phase, which is a changing. So we change the environment, we introduce new tools, we convince people to the new tools, we start learning about CI/CD pipeline, for example, or AWS if you would like to go to the cloud. So that's the most critical part. And then there is a freeze. So if we already know how to do it, if people are more or less convinced, we need to provide them a secure environment to glue these new ways of working practices. Looks easy, not easy to implement. When we would like to unfreeze, we need to create a climate for change. So we need to show to the people that they are safe, they will not lose the jobs, for example. That for engineers, for C-level guys, we need to ensure them that the business is safe. So it will not collapse if we introduce new tools. And then we need to enable the organization, meaning introducing new tools, new ways of working, enable, for example, CI/CD pipelines, and then sustain the change. So that's the tree. And if we think about this example, CI/CD pipeline, we can see that there are very different stages of this. We could have, obviously, ideally, it is continuous deployment when we deploy to production right away without asking anyone, without waiting for the green light from everyone. But that's the third, as you can see, third stage of introducing this model. And ideally, obviously, at the end, there's a DevOps ways of working when we not only can continuously deploy it, but we can continuously work together and learn from each other, meaning that developers will log into the production environment and will operate this production environment, will learn how to use Nagios, how to use other tools like Kibana, Grafana, will learn how to the most important, which is take responsibility and accountability for their products. On the other hand, operations guys need to be open as well, saying that, hey, I'm operations guy, I run this software on production, but I would like to learn some development practices, how to develop the code as well. So that's the ideal state we are heading to in the DevOps transformation. All right, so we spent like 15 minutes on talking about DevOps and DevOps transformation, and let's focus on the C-level point of view, especially CEO point of view. If you will go to her, to him, and say, hey, I will run the DevOps transformation for you, what they will think about that. The question is, if you do you really want to know what they will think about? Because sometimes it's challenging for us as engineers. Why it's so challenging? This picture from Peyman Milani, and I definitely recommend this guy to follow him on the social media, because he is perfectly developed in visualizing things. And this is the example of his visualization, that if you have the generalist view, specialist view, the specialist view is very narrow, but very deep. You have very deep knowledge, and that's why you are here in the companies. But at the same time, you are not able to have broad knowledge and broad picture, because you are focused on the very detailed world. And generalists, like C-level guys, like CEOs, for example, they have to have this zoom out view and see the broader picture, because they need to pay attention to not only technology, but on the whole business. So that's the challenge that we have on those two two levels. When you look inside the technology, you obviously have some good thoughts about introducing, for example, new technology, migrating to AWS, for example, right? But then, if C-level guys look on the costs or on the AWS, I guess this is not a good example because this is a very good approach and people and companies are heading to AWS. But anyway, if the C-level guys will ask you, okay, everyone is moving to AWS, but it's so expensive. What will give us this step? And then you focus on your world, right? So we focus on the programming languages, version controls, and so on and so forth, what we've already discussed. You try to tell them, hey, it will be a better sustainability, it will be in the cloud, it will be available, we could easily manage the infrastructure, and so on and so forth. But actually, and this is true, and this is the language you use, but at the same time, this is the DevOps aspect, which is very important because we talked about the DevOps aspect today. But when we zoom out, it is a smaller piece in the wider organization. Let's use this example and see the wider organization as C-levels see them. So we have DevOps, we already discussed. We have agile practices that we will not discuss today, but there are the agile ways of working we use. And those are the collaborations, let's say, aspects of running the business. But then there's a structure on top of that. So with whom I collaborate? Do I collaborate with the other agile teams? Do I collaborate with the more bigger squads? Do we have silos? Do we have operations, DevOps guys? So that's the bigger picture that you may not want to focus on everyday life, and that's okay. But the C-level guys need to think about the bigger structure of the company and how all the things work together. So with whom you do this stuff? And then there is a strategy, a mystery word strategy, which may be the buzzword for us in the technology side. But this is definitely important because it defines how we would like to do it. So where we are heading to and how we will approach that strategy for going to the cloud, for example. What our 2-year strategy in our company took like 2.5 years to migrate to the cloud. So what's the strategy for those 2.5 years? What people will be doing in which structure, who will be talking to whom, and how they will collaborate. So that's the point of view that C-level guys have. And organizational behavior. So what we would like to do? That's more our vision, or C-level's vision. What's the vision on the organization? How we would like to do the business? How we would like to behave in our domain in order to get more customers and more money. So that's the overall picture. But the picture, when you think about transformation, the picture is getting smaller, and I will be not adding more and more layers to that. It's more about moving this picture. So moving the organization from point A to B, from left to right. As you can tell, I'm telling you that about the organization, strategy, structure, collaboration. It's a complex mechanism, and the big mechanism needs to be transformed from A to B, with all the peoples, with all the technologies, with the business running still, and customers paying us. That's why it's so difficult. To be precise, when the transformation is going on from left to right, it's based on two aspects that I already mentioned at the beginning. Mindset, I call it mindset bus, you will see soon why, and technology. So on one hand, we have people who thinks in such ways, and they need to change the thinking or adjust the thinking and the behavior. And on the other hand, we have technology that we would like to use and change. So looking on the bigger picture, our organization, behavior, strategy, structure, and collaboration, let's imagine this diagram. We have this mindset bus, technology bus, and those four aspects on the top. And as you can tell, this is the example, the analogy to our architecture of our simplified architecture, obviously, of our computers. So we have this collaboration, which can be our CPU, that way that we collaborate together to think about solutions, to find solutions, to calculate in our brains all together what we would like to develop, where and how, in order to get people, get customers pay us. We have the structure, and that's, I would call it, is the memory. Because if we have structure of people, people will remember things. And that's when you transform the organization from A to B, that's the behaviors that people say, oh, yes, I remember 3 years ago we did that, and that was awesome. And I like this setup. I like this on-prem environment. Why do we need to move to AWS, for example? And that's the memory of people that you need to be aware of. You will not change the memory of them, but you can influence implementing new ways of working, saying that, hey, I know that you remember that. How about trying new thing, AWS, for example, and see the benefit that we can get from it. So that's the, I would say, collective memory in the structure of the people in the organization, that some of them can be resistant, some of them can be very inspired with the change. I'm not talking at this talk particularly about the group of people that we meet while developing the change, but in general, there are some group of peoples, and some of them can be resistant, some of them can be very motivated, engaged, and help you in running the business. So I recommend you the other talks about change management that you can reflect about that. Strategy is our output. So what we'll produce, what is our strategy to produce the products, if we'll deliver it on AWS or not. And our behavior, it's our input to the whole organization. So how we behave in the company to move the company forward. How, if we use our code review sessions, if we use pair programming, are we okay with using pair programming? Are we comfortable? Do we want to know how to be a better developers? So all that behaviors can be the input to the company. Talking about trust, because we need to have this trust aspect while collaborating with each other. We have two parts: emotional aspect of trust and cognitive aspect of trust. And when we build the trust inside the organization, people tend to listen to us, people tend to trust us, and C-level executives will trust us that we will deliver. So this cognitive aspect of trust that I mentioned is all about technology. So cognitive means if CEO can trust us that we will deliver this DevOps transformation, that we know Nagios, that we know AWS, that we know Jenkins and all the tools. And if they see that we deliver, that we know, that we have the experience, that we have the knowledge, they will trust us. And that's connected with technology. And the emotional part is more how people feel with us. If C-level executives feel that they can trust us because they can rely on us as a humans, if we are open and if we are honest with them, if we are not afraid of them, that's the other part that is important here, not being afraid of your CEO, because if she or he feels that you are afraid, and they may feel that this person is maybe hiding something because he or she's afraid, and the trust is not easily established in that environment. So remember about two things: and the cognitive aspect of trust, which is technology oriented, and emotional aspect of trust, which is more mindset. How do you have your mindset while speaking with executives? And this cognitive and emotional aspects creates one big trust environment that you can, or trust aspect that you can build with your C levels. Why it's important to have trust in the whole transformation? We talked about the DevOps, we talked about the part of the organizations that needs to be transformed. And why I'm talking about trust here? Because that's the research that they've done in the book, The Iceberg is Melting, that the only 4% of the problems are visible to the executives. Why is that? Because of lack of trust. And that's here is another example. So I mentioned about how executives can trust you, but right now we focus how you can trust executives. If we don't trust your leaders, you will not tell them, hey, I have a problem with that, because you will be afraid, I guess. You can feel that. So going from the bottom, you know the 100% of the problems. But then when you speak with your team leaders, you may hide something because you may be afraid. If there is no psychological safety in a team, if you don't feel safe, that you can share all the challenges that you have, you may hide something, right? And then it's going up and up when you speak with your managers or senior managers. You will hide more because they may be upset, or they may be not happy with that. And then once you speak with executives, or those managers will speak with executives, they can also hide some part of the challenges. So at the end, CEO knows about 4% of the challenges. So that's why you need to, first things first, have the trusted environment when you can trust others, when you feel safe. And then you need to trust your leaders, and your leaders need to trust you, that even if you have challenge, you've done already what you could. You have the knowledge, but sometimes we just have challenges and problems. So that's why we need to establish trust. And on top of that, this 4% CEOs knows about that, and they say openly, usually, to people, hey, I would love to hear about the challenges. That's my job, to solve your challenges. So we, as a C-level guys, needs to also have tremendous work to do to show you guys that you can trust us, and we will not use this knowledge against you. So that's the whole idea. All right, so when we talked about C-level guys, CEOs, CTOs, what are the needs they have, and what are the biases they have in this transformation world? That's important for you to understand, because then if you will know the needs and the biases that CTOs or CEOs can have, you will be able to speak with them more clearly, and you could focus on not emphasizing that those biases are there. You could mitigate those biases. That they should mitigate the biases as well. But this is important for you to know that. And those biases can be visible on every single level of our structure that we've already discussed. So those 4 levels have some biases. The biases and the needs that I used those are the sources of those biases. Needs are based on the Marshall Rosenberg research. That's the guy, very quickly, I will mention that that's the guy that I recommend you to read about. His died couple of, I think 20 years ago, something like this, but he invented he invented, or even 50 years ago, he invented the way of communicating with each other, paying attention to our needs. So that's one thing. And the biases notation, you can go to this website and check about all the biases. There's like 300 biases over there. I choose the best biases that I think are the most concrete biases that fits to the organization. So talking about the needs, when we have the biggest layer, organizational layer, there is a need of being present, having support, feeling trust and hope. Because CEO, when he or she is on the top of the organization, he or she would like to feel that you are present, that people who work in the company are there to speak with them. So that's why they visit the sites, visit the offices. They would like to meet with you guys and discuss the challenges. They need to feel support, and that's actually the need that they may not. Some of them express that, some of them not, because at the same time they need to prove that they are the ones who run the company. But they will not be able to run the company without your support. So they have a need of support from you guys. They need to have a trust in you. So I talked about a little bit briefly how to set up the trust, but the truth is that CEOs and CTOs and C-level guys they are desperately looking for people who they trust. So that's the biggest or the fastest career you can have, to become trustful person for the CEO, because then he or she will come to you and say, hey, I know that we have this agile and DevOps and blah, 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 but I need to develop the proof of concept, and you are the one who will develop it for me, and your career will shine. Why? Because you give them the hope that there is a new product that you will develop very quickly. They could get new customers very quickly. They could show the board that this is a proof of concept that is developed in the company and it's already earning money. So that's why it's very important. There are some biases that can be visible on this level as well. Choice supporting bias. So this is basically seeing previous choices as a good thing. And that's important point when you when you question status quo. Hey, why do we need to do this again? We've done that 3 years ago and we still do the same thing. Yes, sometimes organizations and CEOs are going that path because they have the bias that they've done it already, or they've done it in a different company and it was working, so this will be definitely working in this company. Confirmation bias, seeking information to keep our initial judgment. So if the CEO has the judgment that that will work that way, he or she seeks the environment, or more precisely his or her brain seeks the environment, scan the environment for the information that fits to our initial judgment, to make sure that we made a good decision, right? And conservatism, preferring prior evidence over the new information. I think that's the less important bias, because nowadays CEOs, they are looking for the inspiration. They read a lot of books, listen to the podcast, so they seek for the information, but sometimes they can also think about the past. Why you can help them? You can be aware of those biases and then try to help them, saying, hey, for example, if we say choice supporting bias, right? Hey, you know what? You have this experience with running the product on-prem. I did AWS in a previous company. Let me tell you about it. So if you are aware, you can speak with a C-level more open. Then we move to this strategy piece. So strategy in the strategy piece, C-level guys, CEO guys, they would like to achieve stuff. They are here to achieve new challenges, to earn more money for the company, to discover, to be effective and to make the company effective, and to know where we are heading to in terms of our strategy, our products, and our profit of the company. So if we address these needs, speaking well with the CEO, saying, hey, I have this good idea for the new product and the new market that we can embrace, and you tell about your idea, and CEO can listen to you and definitely will be maybe inspired by what you are saying. And there are three of the most important biases that C-level can have on this strategy topic. There is an impact bias. So overestimated things because of its potential impact. I think that we all know that if there is a brilliant idea in the company, let's go AWS, or let's do it something else. We tend to overestimate things because we imagine our ability to have this impact on the world, and obviously going to AWS is impactful and it's important for companies. But we as engineers and C-level guys, if they are inspired to think about that, they may focus on just this big success that they imagine, but forget about challenges. So you are the ones saying, hey, AWS, fine, but look on the cost. We need to pay attention to the cost and measure the usage of the environment. For example, ostrich, ignoring dangerous information. So again, we close the eyes, we close the ears. We just would like to go to the cloud. We don't pay attention to our legacy systems that needs to run. For example, we don't pay attention for dangerous information because we would like to approach new things, and that's very important bias that C-levels can trap into, because they are so focused on achieving that they need you to say, hey, obviously not being negative, right? But say, hey, there is a dangerous, risky situation that we may fall into. So not be scared about saying those things. CEO would like to hear about that as well. And overconfidence, being too confident about our abilities. So obviously, if the C-level guys are achievers and they would like to achieve things, they may be overconfident that we have the abilities. In the company, for example, you can say, hey, AWS is fine, but we need to hire new AWS consultants or AWS architect to help us. In the structure, why do they need a structure, and why do we talk about silos versus teams, cross-functional teams versus other structure in the companies? Because the leadership, the C-level guys, they seek for the consistency. They would like to stability at the same time, because they would like to develop the company and go above and beyond with the products. But at the same time, business as usual needs to be executed. So that's why they need stability and this trust in people and in the structure. So if you are the one providing them consistency, stability, clarity, and security that the business is running well and will not be disrupted, they will remember your name because you address their need again. And there are four of them, the biases connected with the structure. Clustering is clustering isolation, seeing patterns where there are no patterns. The good example of that is the central teams. I would love to ask you about the central teams in your organization. You've heard about that, but my experience says that going with a central-oriented team of, for example, cloud engineers to distributed cloud engineers in the teams back and forth is thing that I saw in the companies many times. How it works? Because it's a cluster isolation bias. Because when you have cloud engineer, let's say one or two cloud engineers in each team, They work. This team is cross-functional, but some guys on the C level they say, "Hey, by the way, we have cloud guy here, here, and here, and we have the challenge of managing them because the manager of the team, the leader of the team, doesn't understand this cloud. Why don't we put cloud engineers to one team? Have the leader who knows cloud, and there will be central team focusing on delivering solutions to every single team." Sounds brilliant, right? We know that there can be a bottleneck. There can be many pros and cons of that setup, but that's why we led to this conclusion, because we cluster this information. And there are a lot of cloud guys, so let's put them in the one team. Obviously, after a couple of years, I saw, or even after a year, I saw that this team is not functioning very well. The central team. So people say, "Hey, this is the bottleneck over there. So why don't we distribute this team and have cloud engineers in each team?" So that's clustering isolation works. Vividness, focus on the most easily recognizable data. If you work with the C-levels of the senior leaders, you know that they are focused on the slides. Why? Because the slides have the data. If they need to make decisions very quickly, they need to have visualization of data. And the challenge is that visualization of data is important, but they may focus only on the most easily understandable data, because our brain tends to focus on things that we understand. What's the solution here? To provide the data which is easy to read, but at the same time shows the real truth, not simplification of the data. Anchoring, focus on one piece of information at this time, very, very easy to grasp. And framing, being influenced by how the situation is presented. And this is the last piece, but this is a driver of many people's careers. They present the information to looks nice, but in reality they don't look nice. But C-level guys, they have this framing bias, so they believe. For example, the good example is with sales department. If we have salespeople on the conference today, apologize for this example, but this is what I saw, that some of the salespeople, they sell PowerPoints, and they say, "Hey, it will look like it will be shiny product. It is already a shiny product. We developed that," and they present the product in the most sufficient way, in the most effective way. But we as engineers know that the truth is different. That product is either not developed yet, or not functioning very well, or not so shiny. I can that for you as engineers, you may know that. So this is the challenge, that if people present the situation in the very bright way, C-level guys may believe on that. They will not for sure, but may believe, may be biased. Let's put it that way, because they seek for this information. They seek for this clarity. So if you know that, if you know their needs and those biases, you can definitely help them. And the last one, collaboration. Why it's important? Why do they talk about collaboration all the time? Because we know, and they know, that there's a group empowerment. If we collaborate in a 3, 4, 5 group of people, we are more creative in the group, collective. We have collective creativity rather than just developing systems ourselves. We have contribution to each other ideas and to each other code. That's why we also have this pair programming methodologies in our world. We can inspire ourselves and we can belong. So there is a need that CEO would like to be inspired by you guys, would like to contribute to your world, but also would like to hear from you. And at the end of the day, she or he would like to belong to the company, so to you. So that's why he or she is not sitting somewhere in the cloud, and making some decisions. That's why most of the CEOs, they would like to speak with you guys, be open, because they, at the end of the day, they would like to, they feel belong to your tribe. So that's the needs that you can address easily. And the biases in this collaboration aspect. Mirror imaging, assuming others will act in the same way we would. That's the challenge and the bias that they may fall into, and everyone can fall into that. We tend to think that people will think the same way, and we would like to we will act the same way, and then we get resistance because people don't think the same way, obviously. So it's important to remember about that. False consensus, overestimation of consensus within the group. We talk about group collaboration, we talk about discussion and consensus, but at the same time, the consensus could be false if people are afraid and not express each other minds, right? Because we will just say, oh yeah, I agree, but in the mind we'll say, no, I don't agree, but I don't have the I don't want to share my opinions. You are ending up not being motivated, and CEOs can also overestimate this consensus and will not see that you are not sharing your thoughts. So that's why it's important for you to be brave and to speak. Group thinking, choosing the option of majority of the group prefers. Again, the majority is a good option in terms of, for example, we can debate if it's good or not, but democracy works that way, that there's a majority who decides, right? But at the same time, if you are not involved, this group thinking process is not being there fully. So that's why it's important for you to be involved in the conversation with the CEOs if she or he asks about things. Don't be shy, speak with them. And the halo effect, agreeing and disagreeing with someone because of their personality. So that's also the bias C-levels can have. At the same time, they have usually strong personalities. So that can be the bias that some of them can have in the group of C-level guys. But this is most important for you when you speak with them, that CEO can have this halo effect, saying, oh, I'm not saying, but your brain can feel that this person is extraordinary, probably have this knowledge, so he's or she's right. But don't be afraid of that, because your voice matters. Your voice is the thing that drives company forward through the transformation. So now, at the end, I would like to give you some pro tips how to move the transformation, move the company. And the Docker here is not because of the Docker technology, or we discussed it already, but the Docker is to visualize the organization. For the smaller organization, there are smaller Dockers, right? And the ships, but usually the organization with many people on it, trying to influence the strategy, moves like the very big ship, big Docker. So how to help your CEO be James Bond, be the one who is brave enough to tell your CEO, hey, I see this in this opportunity. There are challenges. Can we talk about that? And that's you will become remembered, and your career could be influenced. Build a trust with your crew and your skipper. So build a trust within your team and with the leadership team, with the CEO, because if she or he will trust you, that again you will be heard. Know your coordinates. If you visualize the ship, know your coordinates on the map. Create the map of a course where you are in the company and when the company should be in future. Measure, inspect, and adapt. So during the transformation, CEO would like to have the data, where we are, what are our measurements, how do we know that we are succeeding in this transformation, how do we know that introducing new tools like Docker, for example, bring the overall revenue for the company. Do we have alternative roads if something happens on the sea, in our business environment? Keep the full steam. So the transformation is tough, is difficult, but if you are motivated and keep full steam and have the energy, definitely CEOs will remember you and will value what you've done for the company. Don't wait in the port. Be brave and be vocal. People in the transformation, as I mentioned, there are various different group of people, but some of them would like to just wait and sit down and say, hey, there is a transformation, yet another change that we've already observed. We'll observe that. I will not be involved in that. That might be okay for some of you, but if you would like to speak with your CEO, be brave and be vocal, because again, they need and they seek for people who they trust to and who are motivated to change something. So that's an opportunity for you as well. And drive tugboats. If you see, the tugboat is very small in comparison to the big ship. But on the other hand, if you have the ship who needs to be stabilized, and you have this tugboat, you can stabilize the ship over the course. So many of those ships could be, many of those tugboats, if there are many people around the whole organization, can stabilize the organization, can stabilize the ship and move the ship forward. Now, if you are the engineers, what does it mean? It means normalize the tech stack, for example. So pay attention that during the transformation, your tech stack is stable. There are no or a little tech debt, and the products are functioning. That's important. It's also important to know your limitations of the technology. Why I'm showing you that picture here, because we are, as engineers, we are focused so much on the technology, and that's good because that's our job, right? But at the same time, we tend to forget about the risks around. And if we will have too much technology at the same time, or too many new tools, or we will not have the knowledge about tools, our products may fall, and then the revenue may drop. And that's why the CEO, C-level guys will be not happy with it, will be afraid of that. And look behind the horizon, even in your technology world. Learn about new things. Learn about, everyone is talking about AI, so learn about AI. Speak with your CEO if you have a chance, or with the senior directors, how the AI could potentially influence your products. And be captain, even though if you are not yet senior leader, if you will act like a captain, you can drive group towards a new destination, and even your small group, right? If you are the leader of 4 people, or if you are not yet a leader, but your leader is reluctant to the change, you could be the one driving your tiny group, and organization is nothing more, just a squad of the tiny teams delivering tiny features to the product. If you know your ship construction, so the whole technology landscape, that's easier for you, because if you're focused only on your product, that's your job, right? But if you understand the broader architecture, it is also very beneficial for CEOs. It will allow you to have the evidence-based conversation with your CEO, saying, hey, I see that and that in our technology stack. I have these opportunities for you. Could you trust me and help introducing that? So it's all about elevating your visibility with and trust with the C-level folks. And why to bother? Why to bother? This famous person said that there are 4 groups of people that companies are looking for. There is a trust aspect and there is a performance aspect. When you build a strong trust with your CEOs, and you perform well and inspire them, you will be in this group A, which is promoted in the company. If the company has the need of having new leaders, they will look on you, say, hey, this guy was so helpful during the transformation. Why don't we promote him or her? So that's the thing. And start with your behavior, small behaviors every day. Then if people will see your small behaviors, that will become your reputation. She or he is a trustful guy. Then if you will sustainable have this reputation, and many people in the company, not just one person, but many people in the company will see your reputation, you build your personal brand of the expert, of the person who is open to technological change, open to the leading the transformation, DevOps transformation forward. And then when you build this solid brand across the company with all the departments, all the C-level guys, and the CEO, they will feel this is the concrete, solid person that I can rely on running my company, and your career will shine. I would like to end with this very quick quote from the Edward Gibbon. The wind and the waves are always on the side of the ablest navigator. I wish you all that you will be these ablest navigators through the DevOps transformation, that you will be brave, and then you can build trust with your C-level guys, and that will help you in everyday life in the company. So thank you very much for this 55 minutes, 56 minutes. That was an intense time. Not sure if we have still a couple of minutes for Q&A. So over to you. And if not, you can reach out to me on the LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer the questions. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing my screen, and I guess we may have some questions. Let's see if there are questions on the window. I don't see any. I don't hear any. I guess I need to wait. Organizers told me that I need to wait for the questions to pop up. So maybe that's the time that we need to wait. And again, I wish you the great conference today. It's not so early morning, but definitely it's the beginning of the conference. So I wish you all the best. It looks like we don't have any questions, I assume. So that's also okay. Again, as I said, you can reach me on the LinkedIn, Facebook, Gmail, tomasz.manugiewicz@gmail.com. I'm open to have a conversation with you guys. Thank you very much. Oh, I do have a question in Polish. Jakie mógłbyś podać niuanse z punktu widzenia CEO, które nie są widoczne na co dzień, a jednak są? For those of you who speak English, I will translate the question. How would you show, if you could share with us some nuances from the C-level point of view, which are not visible on everyday life? So the nuances, definitely the nuances are connected with the low-level work. That C-level guy, CEO, is so focused on the high-level work that they may have the tendency of seeing the low-level work as very tiny, which in fact, and we know that from the engineering point of view, that the technology is the key. And that's the battle between CEO and CTO. The CEO says, hey, just this is just a cloud, whatever, on-prem cloud, I don't care. I would like to just focus on the revenue. But CTO say to CEO, hey, I know that for you this is just an environment that we run our application, but this is very important. So that's one nuance that we could have. Zgadzasz się ze stwierdzeniem, że DevOps jeden za wszystkich, wszyscy za jednego. In English, this person says there's a tease that DevOps is like one for all for one type of thing. And if I agree on that, to be honest, I don't know. And I would. This is definitely the thing that I would need to think about that. What we would like to emphasize is the collaboration between developers and operations. So in that sense, that's the team spirit, one for all for one, right? But this is not so easy because people have different skill set. So even in cross-functional team, we need to more rely on people who knows Java, and we need to more rely on people who knows Grafana, for example. So that's not an easy thing to answer. W jaki sposób najlepiej mierzyć zwrot z inwestycji z DevOps? So how to measure return on investment from DevOps practices? Yeah, one thing is about measuring the failures. So if we have less failures, change failure rate. Let's put it that way, because all the DevOps practices should lead us to more higher quality products. That's one thing, and the other thing is that if our availability of products are sustainable, not maybe higher, but sustainable. So if we can predict our availability, for example, on AWS environment, that's two examples of the measurement. But obviously, for C-level guys, the one big measurement is the revenue. If we go DevOps, will that increase our revenue? Will that increase our number of innovations that we have in our products? So I would put it that way. All right, that was the questions that we had. Thank you very much again for this full hour with us, and have a nice conversation during the conference, and let's stay in touch.